Hi everyone, thanks for joining this webinar on CBD and e-commerce challenges and opportunities. I'm joined today by Pete Gove, Head of Merchant and ISO Sales from Trust Payments, Andy Duckworth, Founder and CEO of NatureCan, and Romeo Sacco, Head of Sales for Online Beauty for NatureCan. Guys, do you want to give a little introduction on yourselves, starting with Pete?
Sure. My name is Peter Gove. I'm happy to be here. I run the U.S. Merchant and ISO sales for Trust Payments, and we focus on CBD and other tough-to-place verticals. We've had a pretty good focus on this the last couple of years, and we feel like this is one of the biggest emerging markets in the U.S. currently.
Great. Andy?
Yeah, Andy Duckworth, CEO of NatureCan, global e-com play, ex-CEO of MyProtein, and great to be here.
Thank you very much. Romeo?
Romeo, Head of Online Beauty for NatureCan, joined recently. Before that, been running the European side of things for one of the top beauty retailers in Europe. And before that as well, MyProtein, Head of the Italian country manager.
Brilliant, thank you very much. And I'm Shomi Malik, Development Director of the Association for the Cannabinoid Industry. By way of background, the ACI, we're a membership organization committed to creating a safe, legal, compliant industry in the UK. Our members include some of the largest companies in the world, some of the most ambitious startups like NatureCan. We work with policymakers, retailers, and the regulators in the UK to help build this industry in a safe and compliant, sustainable way. So today, I'd like to talk about the challenges and opportunities that CBD brands face when building an e-commerce brand, especially in regards to some of the logistics and operational side, and hence why we've got Trust Payments on today. So Pete, I'll start off with you. This space is beset by structural problems in terms of regulations and operations. I speak to dozens of brands that find it so difficult to find a reliable payment partner. They find companies are changing their internal policies all the time. They find less than reputable partners, and when they do find a partner, they're getting charged really, really high rates. Why have companies such as Trust found it, well, just not engaged with the industry as much as they have in other sectors?
Well, I would say probably in the U.S. side of things, the biggest problem that we face is the regulation of the industry as a whole. Unfortunately, the last 2 years, we've had no real clear path from the federal government on, how do these businesses get set up with a checking account? How do we provide stable processing for them? What are the exact rates of THC that they can have in their products? And how do you audit all that thing? That's kind of the biggest problems that a processor faces. The other issue that you see is you'll find a lot of financial institutions that, they're eager to take it and they tell people they'll take it. But when it comes down to it, you'll send in paperwork, but you're actually unable to board the account because they stick so many regulations that they don't even really need on the application. You end up, sending all your paperwork and a blood sample and they still say no. Currently in the US, there's only about 4 banks that will accept CBD, and they're pretty restrictive on products. CBD honey in the US is very difficult. They treat that as an actual food here. So it's kind of separate from tinctures and different skin creams and oils and flour and pre-rolls and stuff like that. But my biggest hurdle as someone that places these accounts on the regular is just making sure everyone's compliant with their labs, providing the proper documentation to get a merchant file through and get them processing. On the flip side of that, it's extremely difficult for these clients to get even a checking account through a major US bank institution currently. But we definitely feel, most processors I speak with, we feel like there's tremendous opportunity. This is going to be a $45 billion market in 2024. Cohen & Co. out of New York just put out a study. If you looked at all the dispensaries, CBD, medical marijuana, and regular MMJ or regular MJ dispensaries, almost 51% of products sold that have anything to do with cannabis in the US right now are CBD products. It's the #1 product line. It goes beyond traditional flower. And that's our biggest struggle, I think, is not having a clear path to help all these customers out. It's very, very frustrating for them and us as well.
Yeah, I can imagine. Everybody sees the opportunity, but because of the lack of, I guess, the lack of infrastructure in the industry, like how do we jump in? There's no clear regulations. Even when you ask for lab results, I'm sure you'll have seen doctored lab results. We've all seen that. And also in a world of, there's no standardization in the testing. So how can you corroborate the lab results? And you need a real level of expertise in the space to understand sort of sample preparation and accreditations of labs. That's not your job, right?
No, absolutely.
So how do you, and that's why it's great. We've got this partnership because that's the role the ACI perform for trust. We do your due diligence, and our members are, to the last one, they're all committed to compliance and working the right way. Andy, do you want to tell us a few about your challenges in finding a partner in this space? I know you've got quite a story here.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so obviously I entered CBD, and you're ready for various hurdles and challenges, and you from past business experience, thinking about people, recruitment, supply chain, etc. And actually, genuinely, the biggest challenge was finding the right payment partner. We went through and worked with probably 4 or 5 in the first 18 months, and obviously we're looking to build, if you will, a global e-com play. So with that comes additional challenges, because you need different payments for different territories. But yeah, it's been, by far and away the biggest challenge. The flip side of that is, for me personally, I see it as, a barrier to get through. So actually, finding a good partner who makes it easy for everyone else, might erode some of that win. But yeah, it has genuinely been the biggest challenge for us. It's taken up a lot of management time, finding that solution.
Were you expecting that?
No, because coming from the old world of selling bags of protein and selling vitamins, it was much easier. You spent a bit of time battling with Facebook or with Google and on various sort of products in different territories. But yeah, I didn't expect the same challenge, with the payment providers and gateways. And you can see this movement, where bit by bit you're getting there and you're getting more and more options thrown at you, but they do tend to be very, very expensive. So the percentage points they're taking off you, of the sales line is sometimes as high as 5%, which is astronomical, really. Really painful, to process a payment. So, as those barriers sort of were broken down, obviously you've got more to invest back into your business and, back towards the consumer, which is ultimately what we're always aiming to do.
Yeah, no, completely. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about what that looked like when you went through 4 or 5 companies? Was it you saying no to them? Were they just coming back to you and saying overnight it's not happening?
Yeah, no, it's a big to and fro in, a lot of documentation going back and forth, and you tended to get towards where you thought was the answer, and then at the end it would be a hurdle where I guess the options might say, yeah, we're not supporting those edibles, or whoa, what about this, what about that? And it was just a really haphazard, arduous, time-wasting process. And you didn't, sometimes it's only when you got to the end of the process you realise, no, it's not fit for purpose for us. So yeah, it was the biggest battle for a year, and it's one which we've overcome now, but we still pay high rates, I guess.
Hopefully we'll be sorting that out for you soon.
Indeed.
But yeah, I completely feel your pain there. I've been working for a year with various companies. As usual, the problem's education. They don't know what they're trying to take on board. So, you've got the stigma of it being a cannabis compound, but also it's a cannabis compound in an entirely unregulated space. So, non-cannabis experts, payment guys, are just making it up as they go along because they don't have a clear set of regulations. So luckily in the UK, thanks to the clarity provided by the Food Standards Agency, we've got a clear set of regulations. We've got a timeline attached to those regulations of achieving compliance. And And like you said, Andy, it's moving in the right direction. In the UK, Amazon are doing that pilot program, onboarding 10 CBD companies. So the overall narrative's moving in the right direction, and this space just moves so quickly. 12 months is a long time in this space. So the problems you were facing 12 months ago, hopefully, it's not going to be such a challenge for you. But yeah, again, just want to say that's why it's so good to work with a company like Trust Payments, reputable and reliable. They've shown a commitment to understanding how to enter the space in a compliant way, not service the cowboys, if you will, and work with companies that are committed to compliance. And ultimately that will grow and benefit the consumer, because reliable companies like you partnering up with reliable payment processors means you can offer a reliable service of quality products. So great. Pete, I'll come back to you. What, in an ideal world, what would you like to see from a CBD company when they approach you, when they knock on your door and say, help us out?
Sure. So there's definitely a set of criteria, and unfortunately it's not really defined by the government. It gets more defined by the payment processor, sometimes the acquiring bank as well. Typically what they look for is the regular stuff you need for the merchant account: driver's license, business license, voided check or bank letter so we can deposit funds to them, and a signed merchant processing agreement. Now, on top of that, for a retail store, they'll want to get lab testing on all the products you sell, so we have to provide the labs. They'll also want to see the labeling on that, and you can't have any type of health claim attached to that. You can't have a sticker that says, oh, this will grow my hair back if I rub CBD cream on my head. They'll shut you right down for that kind of stuff. On the e-commerce side, it's actually a little bit harder, one, because of the age regulation. So their site will have to have a KYC. I believe where in the US, we've got 33 states and Washington, D.C., where it's totally decriminalized for recreational use. And then I think there's about 10 plus DC for adult use only. So for that, they have to have some KYC in place that can, verify a driver's license number, something like that. They'll also need to provide the labs. They will have to have the card brand logos on the bottom of their website, and they'll have to have actually an FDA logo that says there is no health benefit or claim authorized by the FDA. Typically, that's all we really need to have. Depending on the product types, we're actually seeing in the last week or so, we're seeing pushback on CBD vape pens. They want you to sell them as a one and done use. They don't want to sell the refillable cartridges anymore. I think that's more due to 15-year-old kids grabbing their mom's credit card and buying them like that. So there's two parts to it in the US, where one of the main focuses is, looking at CBD as separate from THC, which they don't really do here. And when you really drill down to it, they're really two totally separate products, right? The government doesn't see it that way, but if you survey, I think they surveyed a lot of people that run CBD companies in the US, it was like 90% of them actually said, we'll agree with any type of regulation you put on us. Just let us go out there and sell, give us a bank account, and it was something like 80% that believes that there's true medical benefits to a lot of this stuff. And, I don't care what you put down on data. I've seen some people recover from some things using CBD that really were surprising. So the second part of it, besides, separating THC and CBD from each other, is the age verification. That's a huge struggle for some smaller merchants that, they just want to throw up a website and put a shopping cart on there and have people order stuff. They don't stop and think, well, how are we verifying that this information is accurate and it's not some kid that's underage, buying something that they shouldn't be buying. So you see, the biggest thing that we could use over here, I would say, is a clear path to regulation. We won't really have that probably until March 2021 is what we've been told. There's a vote in the House. I'm assuming it's going to pass, but you know how things go over in America. They pass something, then they have to spend 90 days deliberating about, how do we put this into effect? Is there going to be a cannabis commission control, things like that? So we're really kind of walking through the fog over here. Luckily, through our banking partners, we've got 4 great companies that we work with, where we say, if you're a retail business, send you out criteria. And it really allows us a quick path to boarding.
Great, thanks for that. Yeah, I guess the difference between our side of things and yours is we do have some clear regulations. Novel foods, especially in the UK, the UK's Food Standards Agency, who regulate this as a food supplement, have agreed that this is a novel food and said companies that are already on the market in the UK need to have a validated application in, and they've pointed towards all the data they require for that application to be validated. So that, I don't want to turn this into a regulatory conversation, but it is important to note that regulatory clarity, when it comes from the government, gives companies like you much more confidence. So we've got a clear set of guidelines, be novel foods compliant, have a validated dossier in by March the 31st, 2021, and you can carry on selling, provided your products are already on the shelves whilst you wait for full authorization. And that's what the ACI are taking companies like Andy's at NatureCan through. And that is that's not a small feat, achieving compliance through any regulatory framework for an industry that doesn't have any data. So by showing that commitment, hundreds of thousands of pounds committed to producing data, I can take that to trust payments and say, these guys aren't fly-by-night operators. They're spending significant amounts to be compliant. Let's talk about these guys being a low-risk company and get rates to reflect that. So, through the partnership with the ACI and Trust, that's what we're offering. Our members are able to benefit from these. And yeah, I hope you guys on that side in March 2021 get some clarity as well. But you just don't know. I mean, everybody thought the 2018 hemp farm bill was the answer to everyone's prayers, and that's not been the case.
It seemed like it was until they shut them all down 8 months later. I mean, we had 8,000 accounts go down, and unfortunately, we could only salvage probably about 35% of those. Just enough of them didn't know what to do for regulations, didn't know how to get set up. That was a terrible time. It's a time I don't like to think about at all, ever. So I will say though, in the UK, it is so appreciated that there is that clear path. I mean, I could probably do 40 to 50% more accounts in the US if I had the same type of, pathway to freedom on it that we do in the UK today.
Sounds like you'll be looking for a job in England not too soon, not too distant. Right, we've covered some of the challenges. It's not all doom and gloom. There are some big opportunities here. That's why we're all here. That's why we're all talking. Romeo, you've spent a lot of time in e-commerce in other sectors. What's attracted you to this space? And what opportunities do you see immediately in e-commerce?
So previous, let's say, background was in beauty, big beauty retailer in the UK based, but looking at the European side of things means that you have to fight with giants, local based giants, that it's their bread and butter. New companies pop up all the time. So you're constantly looking for that edge, how you make yourself space in a new market. And this made me a first eyewitness of CBD products, which started popping up on the radar a couple of years ago in the beauty industry as well. And among the things, more and more customers were directly engaging with us, asking for products. More and more searches on our sites were showing CBD related keywords in it. And this made me think, obviously, and this shows as well that more and more people are getting educated and get interest around CBDs and their properties, from the well-known anti-inflammatory and the treatment of dry skin. So they want the CBD properties into their daily moisturizer, daily products that they use every day. And recently we joined NatureCan as well. I think it's one of the most exciting places to be, because you're witnessing the change happening in the industry as you knew it and as you start to know in the future. So really, really good. And one of the most interesting opportunities ahead is how to better exploit this great potential coming up. We not only try to showcase the power and the potential of the CBD in beauty across the 20 plus countries in which we operate, but as well by helping US businesses to come into Europe to do business into the beauty industry there as well. We have a couple of companies which we're working for, and again, I think it's one of the greatest opportunities for us here.
Oh, great. So for the US audience that might find it interesting, where there is a clear regulatory pathway over here, sounds like you could really help bring them over here if they want to be in a space that's a little clearer. Tell us a little bit more about how you're helping American brands navigate the space over here.
One of the big points, as you mentioned, is regulation. Make sure that everything is compliant within the European expectancy. Let's say everything needs to be in order. Or not only that, big links with retailers, big links with local businesses, which we built over the years from past experiences and with our expertise of e-commerce leaders across all countries. So we are specialized country managers for that, very linked across all countries.
Great. So understanding the regulations and then having sort of hyper local market knowledge sounds like your strategy.
Correct.
Good stuff. Andy, you've built $1 billion e-commerce brand in a previous life. Tell me about which of the skills that are directly translatable into this space and what's different in the e-commerce CBD space.
Yeah, we'll probably touched on the biggest difference, which is the payment challenges. In terms of the similarities, it's the supply chain. So its previous life was obviously selling plenty of bags of protein and vitamins and minerals, and it was basically taking protein to the end consumer in a relevant and interesting format. And that's something that we've built again with NatureCam. So we've got a really impressive set of products, edibles. Obviously, we've got the obvious stuff like tinctures and gummies, etc. But we've also got foods, nut butters, a lot of vegan products as well. So we've utilised, if you will, a supply chain which we grew up and used previously, and used that for CBD. And I think that's very important. And what we were able to do as well is put these finished goods through the novel food process at a finished good level as well. So we know every single product is safe. We know the toxicology studies behind it and all this sort of good stuff, which again, will obviously stand us in good stead for going into retail, for getting more partnerships, in terms of payments, and just generally, we want to give the end consumer full confidence that what we're selling is safe. And the ACI have been incredibly sort of useful and helpful to us, in leading us through this process. So that's been a great partnership as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. One of the things that I enjoy working with you guys, you'll be the first to admit you're no scientist, but when we bring a regulatory hurdle to you, you just say, let's do it, let's overcome it. What data do we need to produce? And there's producing data for regulatory requirements, but then, like you said, it's being able to categorically say to the consumer, we've tested this, not just a lab result to show the cannabinoids, but we've done tox studies, we've done finished products, high-level studies to show bioavailability, stability, shelf life, toxicology work, and ultimately, it's the brands that are committed to safety, whether it's online or offline. That'll win, I think. So yeah, really, really enjoy working with you guys on that. In terms of Romeo, you mentioned that your consumers were already sort of inquiring about this. Do you find that your customers are quite well informed by the time they hit your platform, or do you need to do quite a lot of education?
Yes, a lot of education is required. Often landing pages needs to be created to make sure that the right customer is exposed to the right kind of knowledge. Most of them are just about curiosity, getting to know what CBD products in the beauty industry look like. They heard about it and they want to know more. But yeah, definitely education is a big piece into this industry. The more the customer understands that a CBD moisturizer is a substitute as well of a normal moisturizer plus the positive effect of the CBD, the better it gets.
And Romeo, if I can jump in too to tag on to what you said, I think one of the biggest misconceptions in this industry is that the actual consumer is of a type that you don't really realize until you look into the data. We had a study commissioned last year by BDS Analytics, and I found out a really interesting data point, which really shocked me. Because when you think about CBD and THC, you kind of think of, you know, a younger person, like, hey man, that kind of thing, you know, like hippy dippy. We found on average, the average consumer is of the age 40, they have a college degree, and they're 3 times as likely as a non-consumer to be full-time employed, believe it or not. So we found some very interesting data points. So this isn't like you know, the products that do the best that we see they're not super high end, but they're also not the cream you're buying in a gas station for $2 either. You know, there's definitely to that between, you know, quantity and a quality product that actually works.
Yes, definitely.
No, I definitely corroborate that. We commissioned a study, market sizing exercise, and I was shocked as well to find that, you know,
Very surprising.
the 40 plus category, you know, their average spend, and also the spread of products. So they weren't just wed to oils, you know, the appetite for experimentation, which you'd normally associate with sort of Gen Z or Z for your audience. You'd normally associate with their sort of buying habits and things like that. But yeah, this is a market for everyone. It is important for any operation to be clear what your value proposition is. But because it's such a nascent space and the benefits are clear, we're not allowed to talk about them yet. But you know, there's not been any concentrated effort by one brand globally that's led this space. This has been a bottom-up thing. The consumers have asked for it. I think it fits the overall global narrative of people, you know, conscious consumerism, people understanding about, you know, sort of supply chains that are ethical, the move towards veganism and things like this. I think CBD fits this narrative, and it's available to all ages. It'd be remiss to talk about buying habits and e-commerce without mentioning that we're in the middle of a global pandemic. How have you found consumer behaviors changing online, if at all? You know, for example, NatureCan, are you seeing consumers visiting more pages on your website, reading more before they convert? Pete, are you seeing multiple touch points online before they hit a merchant, things like this?
No, I mean, I would say honestly surprising, you know, in the beginning when we went to full lockdown in most of the US here, the retail stores that we have obviously dropped, but we did see about a 35% increase to all the e-commerce traffic for the different types of CBD shops we have set up. And, you know, this was a little before COVID. We had kind of predicted, you know, one of the biggest things, it's hard to predict this industry and gather data because of its nature itself. You know, most products being sold in the general market are really coming from like an untracked channel of distribution. You know, a guy's given 100 units of something. Maybe the guy that buys it has 2 gas stations and he puts them right next to the register or something like that. You know, I think right now dispensaries and e-commerce drive the majority of the cannabinoid industry as a whole. But I think you'll see that shift to more of a retail scenario, and within, you know, the next 2 or 3 years. I'd be very shocked if that didn't happen.
Interesting. Andy, how you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, well, I'm going to obviously fight the e-com sort of side of things. I mean, we're in strong hypergrowth anyway, to be honest with you. So it's hard to truly see what's incremental, but we're seeing, you know, what I see generally is channel shift, you know, from, to be honest, offline to online. You know, I think COVID is accelerating that, you know, certainly in the UK, Western Europe, and I'd be surprised if it isn't, you know, globally. I'm seeing more decisive consumer, to be honest with you, you know, higher conversion rate, you know, higher propensity to buy, and, you know, coupled with slowly but surely the different marketing, if you will, channels opening up a little bit. You know, your Googles, your Facebooks are, you know, certainly Facebook are beginning to soften a little bit, you know, with CBD, that, you know, we're certainly seeing our metrics, you know, sort of improving, you know, day by day, and we're delighted with that. And the great thing that we've built with NatureCan, obviously it is global. We've got 25 websites, they're locally translated. We get a really good feel for what's going on CBD globally. Clearly, we're only touching a very, very small element of the total number of consumers at the minute, but the ones we are touching, are buying, and we're really happy with that. So yeah, for being an e-com business at the minute, I think we're very blessed. I think there's a lot of great businesses who have been built, offline over the last 20, 30 years, who through no fault of their own, are obviously really suffering at the minute, and that's just not good to see for anyone. But luckily, e-com wise, we're certainly doing well out of this.
Yeah, I'd go along with that. I do think offline channels play quite an important role in the adoption of this, because there's so much content out there online. It's very hard to sort of verify what's true and what's not. Some of the most well-educated people in the space still don't understand, are you allowed 0.2% THC in finished products in the UK? For the sake of the audience, you're not allowed any THC in the UK. It's not 0.2%. And I think, educating retailers will play a big part of adoption. Obviously, COVID has, from the reports that I've been reading and looking at some data sets, increased e-commerce activity. So that whether that's decreasing cost per conversions. So, companies, as consumers, are spending, clicking less and buying quickly, like you say, the more decisive consumer, or just seeing higher conversion rates because, this is a wellness product in a time where people need wellness products. So I think there's a few interesting subscription models out there. I think that, but yeah, I don't want to downplay the role that offline will have. But a lot of it's just so uncertain as well, isn't it? Like, we just don't know what the world of retail will look like in the next 2 or 3 years. Especially if you add into the mix, this uncertain regulatory landscape that you guys have, Pete, like what's going to happen in 2021 in regards to CBD. So it's really, really interesting times to be an e-commerce brand in CBD. Romeo, what's your biggest growth category in the space, do you think?
At the moment, we're looking at acne, in specifically CBD. It's been one of the most requested from past experiences as well. So a lot of customers are looking into these anti-inflammatory properties and how they can actually provide relief for such problems. So acne range is one of those we're personally looking into more. Therefore, CBD though can be applied in all possible ranges. There's no one specific. So from moisturizers, as I mentioned earlier, to spores, balms, anything at all.
So that's an interesting one. Without making explicit health claims, how do you optimize your landing pages? How do you do paid marketing campaigns with all the restrictions on you guys? So you've got restrictions on what platforms you can use and how you can use them. You've got restrictions in what you can say, but you're still seeing, hockey stick growth in some categories. How are you getting around this without giving away your secrets?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that. So what we've managed to do from the wellness and sports nutrition background is make products obviously with other active ingredients that are relevant and synonymous with what works, what CBD is said to do. So things like inflammation, sleep. There's obviously well-known other ingredients that you can combine with the CBD. You can then make the claim about the other ingredient, which is totally allowed and acceptable, and therefore you can still market to the end consumer. And taking those products and obviously again putting them through the novel food process means at the end of it, you're bulletproof from a CBD perspective as well. So that's certainly been, NatureCan's approach, using that supply chain and the old experience to generate really interesting products that work.
That's really interesting. So piggybacking off other actives with approved health claims. Yeah, that's smart. Pete, do you want to tell us where you see the CBD space in the States this time next year? When we're following up and doing this again, what are we talking about?
I mean, again, with COVID, you don't really know what's going on. We're starting to lock back down over here, and they've canceled some events by Boston where I live already, and that don't happen till June. So we'll see how available everything is. But I mean, I truly believe, this is going to be a $50 billion plus marketplace within the next 2 years. There's too much opportunity out there. There's too many people wanting to do it. I mean, down south, I've talked to a lot of different merchants of all different sizes, and a lot of these people, they're like, I was born to do this, and they're extremely dedicated. They believe in it, more than just, hey, I want to start a business to make money. It kind of encompasses a lot of their core values. They want to help people out with a solid product. Again, to kind of tack back, we're kind of stuck with our hands in place. We can board accounts today. Our threshold's higher in the UK. It's 0.3% for THC for CBD. So we've got a little bit more tolerance. But I think it's really going to hinge on that vote in March and how quickly they can say to the banks, hey, we're not going to come after you from a federal level if you open a checking account for a CBD or a dispensary client. We're not going to audit your business, and things like that. We are starting to see more things open up in terms of sideline products and sideline industries to CBD. For example, like growing equipment, the shakers that sift the CBD off the flower, pre-roll machines, customers that send stuff like that. We're able to board that. And about 2 weeks ago, we actually were able to light up a client that does the testing and labs for CBD. So seeing that stuff open up at these banks and processors is definitely a good indicator that, not only are they wanting to accept this business, but now they're looking for the sidelines, of these partner businesses where they can grow. If you ask me for a prediction, my guess is that this is going to pass, but it'll probably take about 90 to 180 days for them to actually roll it out, deregulate it, make sure the banks are comfortable to process all these different kinds of items for them.
Be interesting to see how it all shakes out. I mean, you've got the election coming up.
Exactly.
March vote. There's a lot up in the air, which I guess in the UK, we're in a settled position. We're Brexiting. We've got novel foods. We know, I'm not going to turn this into a Brexit debate, but one of the positives is that there is clarity on how to regulate this. The European Commission have said that this might be a narcotic. So that is not great news for the European industry, but that does intensify our efforts to get companies like NatureCan compliant so they can make the most of the opportunity in the UK. Romeo, this time next year when we do our follow-up to this, where a NatureCan?
Well, clearly, at least from my side, a European leader in the beauty CBD industry, and hopefully very strong connection to the US and Asia.
Great. Andy, this time next year, have you got a payment partner that you're happy with?
I'm sure we'll have one, and yeah, we'll be needing multiple actually, because we're very much globalizing this business, and as Romeo says, we'll be trading heavily in every major continent. So yeah, looking forward to that.
Brilliant. So yeah, I guess just a big thanks to you all, Pete, Romeo, and Andy. Thanks to everyone watching. To recap, some major hurdles in e-commerce, not insurmountable. Being able to take payments online, slowly but surely, there are solutions that make sense for businesses. You're not sort of backed into a corner and having to pick one company. So yeah, major opportunities for any brands in the US that want to get in touch with NatureCan through Andy. Contact details at the end to see how they can help you take these opportunities in the UK. For any brands looking to work with Trust, again, Pete's details at the end of this, or if you want to understand how Trust payments are working with the ACI and getting these low risk rates and finding a reliable partner, get in touch with myself at the ACI. Details on the slide at the end. But yeah, big thanks to everyone watching, and thanks everyone for putting some really valuable insights here.
Thank you for having us today. It was a pleasure.
and welcome to this panel discussion, everything a consumer needs to know about CBD. What important things does a consumer need to know about CBD? So maybe I'll ask Moira first, as she has the CBD brand.
Okay, it's an important question, Bill. First of all, CBD may not be for everyone. For example, if someone is pregnant or breastfeeding, then there is no safety data on CBD. That doesn't mean it's not safe, it just means that the data is not there. Therefore, it's inadvisable to actually take CBD at that time. And there may be other reasons why. I would also mention that CBD should not contain THC, which is the psychotropic cannabinoid. And this is of real concern whilst the market is not regulated. So I'll come on in the next section to the licensing program that we are going through at the moment. Thirdly, the health benefits of CBD should be available without THC. And then lastly, people should be aware that there is an upper recommended limit of 70 milligrams per day. So that's about 28 drops of a 5% CBD tincture.
In terms of advice, I think it's very much down to the individual consumer. Now, Moira touched on the maximum daily dosage or usage. We can't refer to dosage because it's not a medicine. So we give some sort of clear guidance on the amount of usage that the consumer should take. But I think it's very much down to individuals and their endocannabinoid system and how each sort of sample that they take, how that interacts with them personally. So I think consumers should really experiment. Start with a low dosage, a low concentration of CBD in terms of if they're new to the category or to the industry, as it were. Start off with a 2.5% or 5% type of a product, and sort of start slowly and work their way up.
As a new CBD startup in the UK, what's been the biggest challenge for you so far?
Yeah, I was saying this to my girlfriend this morning, because she actually asked me the same question because she sees me working all day long. And I think it's really, really educating everybody about CBD and cannabis. Every time I speak to somebody new about our company, they'll just consider it as weed oil, or it's going to get you high. And that really is the hardest thing, is getting over that kind of understanding of, the plant, the benefits, the legality around it, the regulations.